Welcome to Spenny in the Nets, a podcast covering the Brooklyn Nets hosted by yours truly, me, Spen Harris. Today, we are joined by my part-time co-host and full-time brother, Nick.
I wish that was reversed.
You wish we were half brothers?
Yep.
All right. Got a lot to unpack in episode 216. Wow. 216th episode of Spenny in the Nets.
Where does the time
Nick,
go?
I don't know. You tell me.
I asked you rhetorically, so no one should.
I don't have the answer.
Okay.
Well, when you figure it out, let me know where the time goes. Nick, the tank is not going in the direction that a lot of Nets fans had hoped before the season. You know, Sean Marks trades the Phoenix pick this season back to the Rockets. We trade with the Rockets. We get our 2025 pick back. That's what happened. So a lot of fans just assumed we were going to tank. We were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. And unfortunately, Nick, that's just not the way it's gone. Whether you like it or not, this team has continued to win games. They are 7-3 in their last 10 with surprising victories over the 76ers twice, over the Houston Rockets twice, and one surprising win over the Miami Heat after the Jimmy Butler trade.
Unfortunately, the Rockets, who are in fifth in the West at 36-22, that's a surprise. Is it really a surprise to beat the Sixers, who are actually ahead of in the standings? And you're seeing like a terrible Paul George's worst year, and you're seeing Joel Embiid not play. So I just wouldn't call that as surprising as a Rockets win.
Not as surprising, but I would always bet on a trio of Embiid, even the way he's playing, a Tyrese Maxey and a Paul George, even the way he's playing. I would always bet on those three in any situation against the Nets. And we're 2-0 against them in the last two games.
Yeah. One Embiid, one without Embiid.
Right. Correct. So that brings me to the next point, Nick. There's really a very, very small chance that the Nets get a top 5 pick in this year's upcoming draft. It's not impossible, but I think it's the number's 7.5% chance they get the 1 seed, the way the lottery works. Here's the status update right now, Nick, in terms of the picks that the Nets are projected to have in the first round. Number 7, number 21, number 23, number 25, and then number 37, which I believe would be in the second round. They are currently 3.5 games behind the team that has the 5th pick right now. So why do I share this with you guys? You guys are Nets fans?
We're in front of them.
We're in front of them, right? We're a better team than the team with the 5th pick, 3.5 games better. Why do I share this with the audience? At this point, we've talked about this ad nauseum in terms of wanting this team to lose, and they continue to win. So at this point, I am actively rooting for them to make the play-in tournament. I don't care anymore. I want them to get the 10th seed. I want them to have some form of postseason basketball, even if that's losing the play-in game. I don't care anymore. I'm tired of rooting for this Nets team to lose when they're 7-3 in the last 10. And unfortunately, they have enough talent and enough coaching to beat crappy teams like the 76ers and the Hornets, and to compete with playoff teams like the Rockets. And I believe Miami is close to a playoff spot right now. I'm going to root for them to win. I'm tired of rooting for them to lose. That's my rant. What are your feelings on this team's performances with sort of that top 5, a chance of a top 5 pick slipping away?
Well, you know me, I've never been in support of a tank. I understand it, but I want a team to compete to win. If anything, this just proves we have more talent than people thought we did, because we have a lot of young guys stepping up and surprising you. Nobody saw this year out of Cam Johnson. Nobody saw this year out of a lot of those random free agent pickups who were just trying to get a spot on an NBA team, right? So I don't know. It's bittersweet, because I understand maybe for the future it will have a negative impact on our draft pick, on the team we're building, maybe the immediacy of success it might have an impact on. But maybe a lot of these guys are going to become whatever that 3rd, 4th pick would have been, right? I feel like it's also a thing, if you're not getting Cooper Flagg, maybe the 7th isn't as crazy of a pick if we're developing some of these other players. So I like to win. Again, I like your hope of making the playoffs just to say we did it. We have absolutely no chance of surpassing the first round if by not some miracle like every player on the other team breaks their pinky toe, right? So it's weird, but I will say whatever is happening now is more entertaining than a tank because we're surprising teams. We're winning these games. We're beating teams like the Rockets, who are having the best season they've had in a decade, right? Actually, probably not. There's probably a season with Harden and like Eric Gordon at one point, but teams like the Rockets who are fifth in the West. But with that said, future at risk, having more fun now than I was expecting.
Do you want to make the play-in tournament, or you don't want to see any sort of postseason with this Brooklyn Nets team?
I mean, might as well. If we're not getting the first pick, we might as well just make the play-in tournament.
Miami right now, as I mentioned, our win against them, they're the 9 seed right now. They've had a bad string of games since they traded away Jimmy Butler. The Bulls are the 10 seed at 23-35, and the Nets are right behind the Bulls at 21-36. They are very, very close to that 10 seed. All right, next segment up. Welcome to the Nets. Killian Hayes, after D'Angelo Russell injured his ankle in the Cavs game 3 games ago, the Nets called up former lottery pick Killian Hayes to the big club for the first time all season. It didn't happen with Hayes in Detroit, where I think he was the 5th or 6th pick overall. Kind of a bust in Detroit. Gets another chance with the Long Island Nets. Has been balling in the G League. So he's 2 games in. What I've seen from this guy, he's shown that the passing ability and the IQ, the basketball IQ, is still there. He cannot shoot. That's his weakness. He's not a great jump shooter. Coach Fernandez wants him to shoot more threes. That's been his one critique of Killian Hayes. I don't know how many more threes I want him shooting because I don't know how many he can make, but I'm definitely excited to see, this young point guard with most of his career still ahead of him, getting some time with the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I mean, he was the 7th overall pick in 2020. So there's something teams saw in him. Obviously, the Pistons have been terrible at drafting players, but I don't know. I guess I'm of the mind of like, if you're going to be like a campaign, right? You better figure out how to score and shoot at some point. And campaign did 7 years into his career, ended up being that 6th man on that Phoenix Suns team that made that run to the championship with Booker and DeAndre Ayton. And he was good, but it took a while. When he was on the Thunder, he was horrendous. So if Hayes could expedite that adjustment to the NBA, you're seeing at the end of the day, guys like Ben Simmons, who at one point were projected to be one of the best players in the NBA. If you can't shoot, teams could sag off of you and double other players on every possession. So I hate to say this, but unless you're 7 feet tall, you should be able to shoot 35% from the field. He's 31% right now. Early on, obviously coming up to the NBA, but if that doesn't turn around, I don't care if you dish out 17 assists a game. If players do not have to guard you, your team is automatically at a disadvantage.
A great point. In the
Thank you.
Sixers
I'll see you later.
in the Sixers game, we'll get into it in a bit. He only took 3 shots. He was 1 from 3 from the field, no 3-point attempts. And then in the loss against Cleveland, he was 2 of 6 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3-point land. So it's his first few games. It's not like he's going to be chucking up shots. He is the point guard, but as Coach Fernandez said, wants to see him shoot more. I guess I want to see him shoot a little bit more too if he is going to start at point guard. In this league, like you said, DeAndre Miller is the guys who would just stack up assists back in the day. They don't exist as much. Scott Skiles was another one. You got to be able to score the basketball if you're a point guard in this generation's NBA. So shout out to Killian Hayes. Excited to see him do a little bit more. I do want to shout out 2 guys who, have been really, really impressive during this stretch with the Brooklyn Nets. The first guy is Trendon Watford. Watford has been a monster since coming back from injury. He's just such a smart player. He scores around the basket. He's aggressive. He can hit the open 3. And he has an extremely high IQ. He really doesn't turn the ball over that much. The Nets, I think, I saw a week ago, they were like 12-9 when Trendon Watford plays this season. And they're such a better team when he's on the court. I know he's young. He's only 24. I'd love for him to be part of the future of the Brooklyn Nets. But that's my first shout out to Trendon Watford, who's been balling in 2025.
Shout out.
All right, you ready for my next shout out?
Yep.
Shout out to Tim Capistraw. You familiar with Tim Capistraw?
I am.
Color commentator with the famous Chris Carino on the Nets radio broadcast. He's been calling some of the games, doing color commentary on the Yes Network, and he's been incredible. I mean, he has such a dearth of basketball knowledge. He's fun to listen to. He knows the game inside and out. Oh, and Nick, former guest of the pod, the Capper.
Is that what they call him, or did you just make that up?
No, that's his nickname, the Capper.
Does he just cap a lot?
No, he talked. If you go back, I forget what number episode it is. I want to say it's 150 to 180. He talks about how he got that nickname, the Capper. But yeah, he's been incredible. So shout out to Tim Capstraw, doing a great job calling some of those Nets games, and shout out to Trendon Watford. Those are my 2 shout outs of the week.
Shout outs of the week brought to you by Slate Milk.
Slate Milk. All right. This next segment is called Give Credit Where Credit is Due. So early in the year, Nick, we kind of ragged on Nick Claxton a bit. He was not playing good basketball. He seemed soft out there. He didn't seem sure of himself. That's really changed in 2025. In this 10-game stretch, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Claxton's been incredible. We'll get into the buzzer beater in a little bit, but he's blocking shots. He's a lot more engaged on defense. He's taking smarter shots on offense. He pretty much has 2 shots on offense, right? Aside from the alley-oop, he has the push shot, that kind of Isaiah Hartenstein, push shot, and he also has the running layup where, because he's quicker than most centers, he just runs past them and puts it off the backboard. He hasn't been, taking as many ill-advised shots. He hasn't been turning the ball over. Aside from getting suspended for a game for getting too many flagrant fouls, he's been a joy to watch, and this is the Nick Claxton that I love to see. We killed him in the beginning of the season, but I got to give credit where credit is due. He's been great as of late.
2 things. 1, I believe it's Hartenstein. And 2, I think we were saying those things to light a fire under his ass. Like, we were just motivating Clack Attack this whole time. People give him shit. He's developed at a very slow pace. He's not reached his true potential yet. And now he's getting the opportunity. He's one of the best players on this team after we pretty much got rid of anybody who has any basketball talent. It's his time to shine. And he must also be feeling the heat from people like Clowney, right? From people like Sharp, who are going to take his minutes. He has to step up now. So between us criticizing him, between players fighting for time, it's kind of now or never for Nick Claxton. You call this segment Give Credit Where Credit's Due. I call this segment Now or Never. Nick.
And maybe we should get the credit, Nick, because I know for a fact that Claxton listens to this podcast. I mean, he's an avid listener of Spenny and the Nets, always has been, always will be. He heard a lot of the things you and I said earlier in the year, or I guess earlier in the season, and he wasn't offended. He didn't take it to heart. Look, this isn't personal. We like Nick Claxton as a person. We've always liked him as a person, but he heard what we said and he used it. And all of a sudden he's playing great basketball, and give credit where credit is due. Nick, I think it's you and me.
I've had Nick Claxton over my house for a Hanukkah before. We exchanged gifts.
Go on. I'm sorry. I believe you.
He's my son's godfather. So we're close on a level that I can't even describe to you because I can't.
By the way, just FYI, we celebrate the holidays together because we're related, and I've never celebrated Hanukkah with Nick Claxton. So I'm not sure where I was when this happened.
Oh, well, sorry. If you didn't know, there's 8 nights. You think I'm with you every single night?
Yeah, I guess not. Real quick, we got a shout out Long Island. Shout out Dave Wax, current listener of the podcast. No questions for Dave, but just wanted to shout him out. Shout out to David Wax. Shout out Long Island. All right, Nick. Last 3 games we're going to go over. We're going to start, and we're going to do this in chronological order. So we're going to go over the Wizards game on Monday, 2/26. A loss, 107-99. The Nets took the L in Washington. It's weird. As competitive as the Nets have been this season, we seem to just lose whenever we play the Wizards, who have been one of the worst teams in the NBA. Now, I watched this game. I watched it live, and then I rewatched it this morning. Story of this game, Marcus Smart gave the Nets fits defensively down the stretch. He clamped up Watford. He turned us over a few times. Just a really, really strong performance from him. And him and Chris Middleton have brought a toughness to this Washington team they did not have when Kuzma was there. Chris Middleton is not washed by any stretch. He was actually getting into it with Tyrese Martin late in that fourth quarter. And Marcus Smart, I think a lot of people have written him off after the Grizzlies traded him, but those are two guys that can still play. And if you look at the Wizards for the future, think of their defensive core, Nick. They have Koulibaly, who's known for his defense, and he's just getting better on offense. They have Marcus Smart, and they have Bubs Carrington. Those are three guys who can play really good defense. So they're building in Washington, and you have Jordan Poole with his offensive mastery. What they're building in Washington, you can see in glimpses against the Nets on Monday night.
I'm not gonna lie, like blinked an eye and Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton were on the Washington Wizards. That was like a weird thing to see for the first time. Yeah, it sucks losing to a team that's like 10-47, but obviously this isn't the team. The team is improving. They're trying to make moves as well for the future. So when you see it on paper, it's like, how the hell did we lose to the Wizards? When you see the game and you watch the players they now have out there, it's more understandable. I would argue that this Wizards team now without Embiid is better than the 76ers, and they're obviously 10 games behind them as well. So a tough loss, again, coming off a few solid wins, a few surprising wins, but it does seem like this was kind of the Wizards' time to get their 10th win of the season.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed, they all seem to want to be there, which, when a team is 10-47, they might fall apart. Guys might not give the same effort anymore.
I fall apart.
Down to my core. Great song. But I saw the ball movement yesterday. I watch these games. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Nets, but I respect great ball movement. I love it. That's beautiful basketball. And they were making the extra pass. Even Jordan Poole was making the extra pass. So if the biggest ball hog in the league is bought in Washington, you like that for their future. 26 points for Jordan Poole. He was the high man in the game. 20 points for Bilal Koulibaly. 12 for Kaishan George, 11 points for Richaun Holmes, and Marcus Smart had 10 points off the bench. The high man for the Nets was Zaire Williams with 19. He was 5 of 7 from three-point range. I believe that was a career high for Zaire Williams. Tyrese Martin and Trendon Watford had 15 points and 11 points off the bench, respectfully. And Cam Johnson finished with 17 points. No other net was in double figures. Nick Claxton did pick up his, I believe, 6th flagrant foul of the year, and that warrants him a 1-game suspension. So no Nick Claxton tonight when the Nets take on the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, last thing I'll say is Wizards shot 50%. We shot like 34. So when a team's shooting that well, 42 from 3, I think they were like, we're not going to win the game.
They have our number this year. I don't know what it is. For some reason, the Wizards wake up and they have big games against the Nets. Okay. We move to one of the most exciting Nets games of the year, the 105-103 victory against the Philadelphia 76ers. Nick Claxton is the hero of this game with the ultimate putback off the Keon Johnson miss from 3. The Nets actually dominated most of this game. I mean, the first half, they outscored Philly 40-30 in the first, 23-22 in the second. The third, Philly started going to run. They outscored us 24-20 in the third and 27-22 in the fourth. This was a win. I mean, Philly's a game or two behind us. They desperately needed this. They had Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George, but it was not meant to be for the Philadelphia 76ers. And the Nets get the exciting victory off the Claxton putback. Claxton finished with 16 points, 9 rebounds, 2 of 3 from the free throw line. Nick, talk to me about watching this game and how it finished.
It was the best game of the season, just entertainment-wise. I mean, that it was a buzzer beater by Nick Claxton, who we ride all year, who we shit on all past what?
Pause.
2 or 3 seasons we've been riding him, and he finally finishes. I mean, it was a beautiful game. It was really fun, but it just goes to show, too, I feel bad. I'm not a Paul George hater. I like Paul George on the Pacers. I like when he started bouncing around. I liked him on the Thunder. I didn't love him on the Clippers because I'm just not like a Kawhi guy. I don't like the way the Clippers kind of structure their organization. I liked his move to the Sixers. I liked that combination of him, Maxey, and Embiid. I thought that would be a dope combination. And I hate the Celtics and the Knicks more than I hate the Sixers. So I would rather the Sixers come out in the East than those two teams. Unfortunately, he's having a terrible season, culminated by, if you look at that replay where Claxton catches the ball on the left side of the paint, puts the buzzer beater back, Paul George had a clear shot on the rebound, and he did not really box out, and he did not really go for it. He kind of half-assed both. I'm guessing he thought, buzzer's about to go off. He missed the 3 to win the game. We're going into overtime. He does like a half jump and kind of a half reach out for the ball. Claxton goes 100%, 110%, gets the ball, one foul swoop, boom, gets that in. It was awesome. Great move. But I do not want to go without saying that Paul George, the effort he put into that last play, is kind of the epitome of what's happened all season for Paul George.
I love that take, calling out Paul George for not boxing out. Listen, he's not a bang bro. He's not a bang guy, right?
Correct.
Bang guys are down low. They're banging for rebounds. They're going to box out. Paul George is not a bang guy. He's never been a bang guy his entire career.
Actually, that's not true. He's like an unbelievably statistic defender.
But what about rebounds?
He's a big dude. I'm guessing his career has got to be like 6 or 7. Career 5 rebounds.
He's a big dude.
I didn't
How
say
big
like
is he?
that.
He's like 6'10". 6'9". He's 6'9". Yeah.
He's 6'8". You're just making things up now. And in his career, he's averaged 6.3 rebounds.
Yeah. Did you hear what he said on his podcast today?
No.
He's taking a break from the podcast to focus mentally and physically on helping Philadelphia compete for a championship this year. So he waited until February 2026 when the Sixers are
it's
at the bottom of
2025.
the. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I got the year wrong. He waited until the Sixers were 20-37, and they're like 3 games out of the 10th seed to stop podcasting and focus on the season.
Respect.
Shout out to Paul George for making that sacrifice. One thing I want to come back to, you said that we've been riding Claxton all season, and finally in the Sixers game, he finished.
Yeah, I don't know why you had to say it again.
No problem with that. Okay. The only other thing I'll say, and that it kills me to say this, beating Philadelphia is not good for our long-term future. They're going to get a pick in the lottery. They're going to have a higher pick than us, and they still have guys like Embiid, Maxey, and probably Paul George coming back. So if you're a Sixers fan, you might not make the playoffs this year. Yeah, your team's pretty cooked. But we've seen teams come back extremely strong the next season when their stars are out with injury and they get a good draft pick and they get lucky. So that's the only thing I hate. I get that Embiid is cooked and he needs knee surgery and he probably won't play until 2027 that season. Maybe I'm thinking if he gets the surgery he needs, but I'm not worried if I'm a Sixers fan. They're going to get a high pick. You still have Maxey, who's a young guy, and Embiid will eventually come back.
Yeah, I don't mind the Sixers. I'm not a hater, but you're right. Every time we beat them, we're so close to each other in the race right now. They're going to get a better pick. But hey, at least we could say, well, we're closer to the play-in game.
Should we shout out to Cousin David?
Sure.
Diehard 76ers fan, Cousin David. Shout you out.
First name Cousin, last name David. All right, what's the third game?
Cavs, Nets. Cavs win 110-97. The Nets were in this game and competed in the first half. They actually outscored Cleveland 31-24 in the second. Cleveland came back and smacked us 35-27 in the third and then outscored us in the fourth. But we competed for the majority of this game. We tend to play Cleveland pretty tough. Cam Johnson was the high man for the Nets with 18 points. Keon Johnson chipped in 16. Really bad three-point shooting night for the Nets, 10 of 38 from the field for 26%. And 4 out of 5 Cavs starters were in double figures. Mitchell led the way with 26 points. But Garland got it going late. Mitchell had it going pretty much most of the game. And Cavs, they got to the line. They got to the line 27 times, 19 of 27 from the line, 8 more times than the Nets. And look, watching the Cavs, night in, night out, they look like the best team in the NBA, even with the way the Thunder are playing. Obviously, the Celtics
the Cavs have the best. The Cavs have the best record in the NBA. They're 48-10. The Thunder are 46-11.
I totally get that. I just mean they look like the most complete team. I mean, they have a solid bench. They have guys like what's his face? Ty Jerome gives them good minutes off the bench. You have Max Strus and DeAndre Hunter. So depending who you want to start as the 5, that next guy will be your 6th man. Isaac Okoro got 17 minutes in this game. He's still on the bench. I think he's a starter on most teams. And then Sam Merrill, who's pretty much I think a Sam Hauser on the Celtics. Sam Merrill is your sharp shooting guy off the bench. He was a plus 26 in this game. Yeah, the Cavs have beat us all year. We've played them tough, but really no match if you're going to score under 100 points against the Cavs.
Cavs are on an 8-game winning streak. Sixers are on an 8-game losing streak.
Interesting. All right, Nick, next game up, we are at home against the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight. If you're listening on Thursday, we played them last night. The spread is OKC minus 17.5.
I mean, we only lost by 13 to the Cavs. I'm taking that.
I think the Nets cover.
Hold on. I'm putting like a hundo on that right now.
Put a hundo on
is anybody hurt?
Maybe don't put a hundo on it. It's a lot of money. Well,
you're right. Maybe like a grand.
I don't think D'Lo is playing. Claxton's suspended. Let's take a look at the injury report for this game. No Noah Clowney, no Nick Claxton, no D'Angelo Russell, no Cam Thomas, no Dariq Whitehead.
I don't love it as much anymore.
No, you know what? Give me the Nets plus 17.5. I think they lose by 12 or 13.
I'm getting 16.5.
Okay, so it moved. Okay. So what do you think? You haven't given your pick yet.
I think they cover 16.5. I'm gonna say they lose by 11.
All right, Nick and I have the Nets covering tonight. Take that bet if you're on FanDuel or DraftKings or Underdog or any of those.
They can't take it bet
websites.
by the time we release this podcast.
Well, if you're listening now, take the bet.
Oh, if they're in live. Okay.
If you listen before the game against the Thunder, if you listen the next day, obviously you can't bet on it. I don't have to explain how that works. All right, Nick, real fast before we finish the show, I have 2 more segments. This is should they or shouldn't they? So I read an interesting article from Jed Katz in Sports Illustrated where he brings up the possibility of the Nets leveraging a few of the extra first-round picks they have from the Mikal Bridges trade to trade up in the draft should they fall outside of the top 4. As I mentioned earlier, they have a 7.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick right now. Nick, should they keep their draft picks and not trade up, or do you think it's worth it to trade up into the top 4 to try to get a Dylan Harper, an Ace Bailey, or a VJ Edgecombe?
I don't know. I'm of the mind of like once you drop that 1 or 2 pick, you're kind of getting a top 10 guy overall. I probably wouldn't trade up unless you're getting a 1 or 2, which I don't think is possible.
If you're getting one of the top 3, I would trade up. If not top 3, I would say stay at 7. The 3 guys that I love are Flagg, Bailey, and Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper would be like the ultimate because he's a point guard, so he can come in here and essentially be our version of Jalen Brunson in a few years. But after those 3 guys, I'm just not in love with anyone. I kind of agree with you. So if we stay at the 6 or the 7 or the 8, I wouldn't necessarily feel the need to trade up to the 4, the 5, or the 6.
Yep, I hear you.
All right. So we're in agreement on that. And then the last thing I wanted to share, Nick, I wanted to share a fun basketball anecdote. So those who listen to the podcast know that Nick and I, we like to play hoops. We're hoopers. I play at the local 24-hour fitness. They have a few courts. But I had a humbling experience the other day. So, normally I play, if I'm playing with 7 other guys, I fall in that, maybe the 2nd or 3rd best to the 5th or 6th best on the court. I'm never the worst. I'm usually never the best, but I'm within that range. I can hit the open shot. I consider myself a decent pickup hooper. Saw a guy playing the other day by himself. It was an empty gym. I asked him if he wanted to play one-on-one. He said, sure. Now, this gentleman happened to be 6'7". He happened to have decent leaping ability as I was watching him work out. But I'm like, yeah, maybe I can hang with him. I'm pretty good. This man proceeded to beat me 12-1. He was hitting step-back three-pointers. He was dunking. He was hitting mid-range shots in my face. I thought, holy shit, 12-1. Let's go again. Give me one more shot. He beats me 12-2. Turns out he is a D1 commit He is 6'7". He is going to college next year to play Division I basketball, I believe, at a school. Let me look up. I just want to see what division they're in.
I think
But
you're telling the story wrong. I think the story should be you played him again and you improved your scoring 100%.
I agree with you.
That's 100% improvement. You went from 1 to 2 points, dude.
Right. Right.
And did he trip on those 2 points?
He was pretty pissed off. I'm not going to lie to you. So it's saying that Quinnipiac is D1, but it's not telling me what like division they're in. I guess they're in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference.
Yeah,
and the college is
a sick hockey team.
Yeah, the college is Quinnipiac. Anyway, he was nasty. So I tell this story, to kind of let you and the audience know there's levels to this shit, right? I could train for 10 years. He's still going to beat me 12-2. I can't change my height. I can work on my shooting, but this guy was a stud. And while I can compete at the 24-hour fitness with 90% of people there's always going to be those few guys who I can't touch in one-on-one or 4-on-4 or whatever. So humbling experience, but I loved it. I loved every second of it. I love getting my ass kicked in one-on-one. The next day I came out and I put on against Joe Schmo. So it made me better.
Good. I'm glad.
You like that story?
Loved it.
Okay. All right. That's it. That does it for this week's episode of Spenny and the Nets, Ep 216. Me and Nick are now rooting for the Nets to win. Moral of the episode, hope they get a top 3 pick, but I'm done actively rooting for this team to lose. Nick, any final words for the listeners?
Winning isn't everything. It's the only thing.
Who said that?
I don't know.
I don't care.
Wait.